Hello everyone, my name is Holly and I work in genealogy and local history at the Columbus Public Library. This video is part of a series about Ancestry 101. In this series I will be introducing books that I've grouped together to help patrons focus on an area of interest. These are books that you can place on reserve and have delivered to your car with our convenient curbside pickup. For example, I'll talk about books on internet genealogy, books about DNA, and maybe all-in-one books for general interest. The titles I'll cover are currently at the Columbus Public Library branch, but if you would like to check them out and have them delivered to a branch that is more convenient, please let us know. So here's today's topic: who's buried here? We have Historic Linwood Cemetery, Love Cemetery, and Your Guide to Cemetery Research. Historic Linwood Cemetery by Linda J. Kennedy and Mary Jane Gaylor is a short, compact, fact-filled book. With it, you can almost construct a who's who city genealogy tree that shows the financial, social, and spiritual relationships of the inhabitants that built the city of Columbus. It's an easy read and gets a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads ratings. The first sad interment was Truman Thomas, the son of a city surveyor back in 1828, the year Columbus was founded. The boy was buried in the middle of a 4-acre plot that would become the city cemetery and later called the Old City Cemetery. The name was changed to Linwood Cemetery in 1894. Today, families are still going up on the hill to bury their loved ones, as evidenced by an April 2020 graveside service that was held for a 90-year-old Columbus woman known for her dedication to the betterment of her community. The memorial stone carvings pictured in the book offer a sharp contrast to today's flat grave markers. They are soaring, complex, and detailed. In these pages you can admire angels, floral wreaths, columns, obelisks, and ornate urns of all shapes and sizes. The book is full of illustrations, photos, and historical context about the notable locals and immigrant deceased. There are suffragettes, socialites, soldiers, some were born in Scotland or Ireland, and there are memorials to fallen servicemen whose remains are buried overseas. Next, we have Love Cemetery, Unburying the Secret History of Slaves by China Galland. At the end of the Civil War, Harrison County, Texas, was the largest slave-owning county in the state. This is the history of East Texas and how a 21st century woman helped honor the forgotten enslaved ancestors buried in a place called Love Cemetery. The land for Love Cemetery was deeded not by a plantation owner, but by Della Love Walker. The 1.6-acre plot had been established, marked, legally deeded, registered, and recorded at the courthouse in 1904, but boundaries around the adjacent lands changed hands over the years, a lot. In Texas, cemetery land belongs to the dead. Descendants have a right of access to their deceased family members, regardless of how much private property they have to cross. But because the original plantation land had been divided, subdivided, deeded, redeeded, sold, and resold so many times, the ancestors had been locked out of Love Cemetery for roughly 40 years. The land was divided into smaller and smaller pieces, and fewer people from the community remembered the cemetery was there. It was one thing to have an easement on the road to the cemetery, but it was another matter to track down the property owners whose land the road crossed. This is not just about a forgotten cemetery. It is a story about persistence, friendships made, lost, and remade, and relationships between African Americans and whites in the 21st century. Finally, we have a popular and prolific author, Sharon DeBartolo-Carmack, and her Your Guide to Cemetery Research. It gets a 4.16 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It covers everything from creation of death records and where to find them, to cemetery preservation projects, gravestone symbols, and a timeline of epidemics from the 16th through the 20th centuries in America. In addition to the usual places to search for death information, like the Social Security Death Index, mortality schedules, or obituaries, she suggests looking for necrologies that may be in publications of societies, fraternal organizations, unions, or alumni publications. These would show lists of deceased members. There is a handy list of coroner and/or medical examiner jurisdictions, so a researcher will know which states use the state chief medical examiners, district or county medical examiners, or the coroner system. Some states, including Georgia and Alabama, use both the medical examiner and coroner systems. Checking for a coroner's report might be the only way, for example, to find the cause of a child's death. The book offers advice and suggestions for finding elusive graveyards, some that are on private property or graves that have been moved. Once you've located a cemetery, learn how to search for overlooked clues, like knowing the composition of a tombstone can help date it. It could be made of slate, sandstone, marble, granite, limestone, schist, or soapstone, and taking note of the names of people that are buried around your ancestor. Besides the name and date, many of the symbols, epitaphs, and motifs are explained. A statue with a forefinger reaching up or down can have the same positive connotation, and an inverted torch could represent the end of a family line. There is a chapter about American burial customs and folkways, and a chapter on ethnic and religious funeral and burial customs. If this is a particular interest of yours, I highly recommend 3 books by Caitlin Doughty that I'll cover in a few minutes. Finally, there is a cemetery survey and headstone transcription form that you can copy and use for your next trip for cemetery research. Here are a few websites where you can look for graves. Find a grave, Billion Graves, Interment.net, and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs website. Here are the 3 books by Caitlin Doughty that I highly recommend. They're all rated between 4 and 5 stars on Goodreads. First is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, From Here to Eternity, and Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? And here is a list of book credits from the ones I referenced today. Finally, a little genealogy humor. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.